I'm backing up my truck, I'm gonna hook it up, loading up my boat with all my gear. I've been working hard all week, trying to make ends meet, spending time wishing I was fishing. Whoa, Terry Wickstrom wants to take you fishing. Gather up your gear and come along. Whoa, Terry Wickstrom wants to take you fishing.
This is Terry Wickstrom. Join Karen Cullum, Greg Claggio, and me as we take you to some of our favorite fishing spots from Colorado to Minnesota, the Arctic Circle to Central America and beyond, as we revisit episodes of Mountain States Fishing and Angling Adventures Television on the best of fishing with Terry Wickstrom.
Hey, we're up here today. We're at Golden Gate Canyon State Park, just outside of Denver, Colorado. In fact, it's only about a 20-minute drive from downtown Denver. We're going to get up here. What we want to do is we want to show you the park. It's a beautiful place. Got a nice visitor center. If you come up here, you'll see the visitor center. Beautiful scenery. Real popular in the summer. People will drive through the canyon just for the looks. A lot of hiking trails up here. Camping. Really nice place. Several small ponds that are heavily stocked with trout. Two of them are stocked just before winter for ice fishing. We're going to go out and show you a little ice fishing. Now, we not only want to show you the ice fishing in the park, and we're going to catch mostly small fish, that's what's stocked here, but we want to show you that there's good little places like this, probably close to where you live, and places you can go and just have a nice few hours out having a good time. But we also want to teach you some of the fundamentals of ice fishing. We want to teach you about being mobile and finding fish and show you some different jigs and techniques and products you can use ice fishing that you can get out and have a really good time. So join us out in these little ponds, Golden Gate State Canyon, just outside Denver, Colorado. We really want to show you though that what ice fishing can be about. We want to teach you some techniques and the basics of ice fishing, show you this little spot and catch a little fish. Now, one of the things you're going to hear me talking about ice fishing all the time is mobility. A little later on today, we're going to take our ice hut out today so we can show you the kind of hut we use, the fish trap that's like a sled. Sometimes on a nice day like today, mobility is just a bucket like Steve's carrying here. He's going to take the rods out of that, flip it over and sit on it. I got a tackle box right here. We're as mobile as can be. We can move around. We got nothing to set down on the ice except what we're going to sit on and our electronics. And we're going to show you that. We're going to go over here and get set up. We've actually drilled a couple of holes already. We'll get set up right here and see if we can show you a couple of fish. Now, when you're using a bucket, the one thing about a bucket, you got to take the stuff out of it to use it. So we got our little thing, we'll clean the hole, we drill these holes a little bit. We've each got a couple rods here and a rod holder. We have another set of electronics right in the bucket. This flips over, there's Steven's seat. He's got those electronics, I got this here, we're gonna get set up and see if we can't catch a few fish in these holes. Now, the way I typically approach a place like this, normally if it was a little bigger area, I would have done some more homework. I'd have gone out, I'd have tried to find a lake map. Well, there's obviously no map available for these little places. But I would have tried to find a lake map out, and then I would have marked off a structural area, and I would have then gone with my electronics and drilled a series of holes, checked them looking for fish. Because this pond is so small, we can probably attract these fish here. So what I'm going to do, I got to set up my electronics, get the electricity turned on to them, and it's about 7 feet here, and I got something that looks like a fish. So I'm not even going to put any bait. The first thing I do when I start out, when I go ice fishing, especially for panfish or rainbow trout, sometimes walleyes are a little different. But what I do is I start out with a spoon, a flashy lure with no bait. Because I can lower this down the hole and attract fish if they're there. And I'm going to drop that down. I can see it on my electronics now. So I'm just going to jig that a couple times, then I'm going to pause it. If I don't get a hit, I'll go back with some bait, I'll tip it with something. But it's a great way to search and see if there's fish. So I'm watching my electronics to see if any fish come in to look at it. Now I've jigged in here a little bit, I'm watching my electronics. I haven't seen anything, but you got to remember that we're only in 7 feet of water here, and because of that, we won't see anything that's just a couple feet away because our cone is only going to be about 2 feet wide. Stephen got a little bite on the bait, so I'm actually going to take and put a little piece of bait on the end of my spoon to hopefully get a little extra attractant. Now normally I would jig this until I saw something, and then I'd rig up my jig and try to get it if they wouldn't hit the spoon. You know, I had a fish come in at that hole. This is just a small pond. I'm going to drill a series of holes. We're going to check it out. If we don't get anything, there's a bigger pond down the road we're going to move to. One of the nice things about being mobile the way we are, it's so easy to move right now with what we've got. And I've got a 6-inch hand auger with me, and this 6-inch hand auger will cut as fast as a power auger when it's got sharp blades on it, and it's easy to carry. So when I'm fishing a small pond like this and I only have a few inches of ice, it doesn't make sense for me to carry my power auger. And what I'm going to do is just drill a series of holes here, check for maybe a depth change like a hole or a little river channel in this pond, see if I can find some fish in a hurry. If I can't, we're going to pack things up, move down to the next spot. Okay, here it's 6 feet again, so I'm going to give this a try just to see if I see any fish. So I'm just going to jig this spoon a little bit and see if any fish swim into view. Not seeing any. We haven't had any bites for a while. So we're probably going to drill a couple more holes here, and then we're going to head out and check the bigger pond. Hey, we're still at Golden Gate Canyon State Park. We first stopped at one of the little ponds. There's two ponds you can ice fish up here. One of them's a tiny little pond. Now, they stock both of them late in the fall, and we thought if we could get out on that one real quick, we might be able to catch a few of those stockers that were still lingering there. Now, on the little pond, we showed you that mobility can be a bucket where we carried our stuff in it and sat on it. It can be as simple as that. But my favorite way to ice fish is out of these fish trap shelters that we're going to show you out in this pond. We still haven't sacrificed our mobility. The base of this unit is a sled. All of our stuff is down inside here, so we don't have to take anything out when we set up. We can sit in it just the way it is by popping up and sitting down, or we can flip the cover over, and we'll show you that later when we get into fishing. But we've still maintained our mobility. I can pull this by hand or with a snowmobile or an ATV across the ice. Still have all my stuff. Now, I prefer this to the ice fishing shelters that you fold up and make into a toboggan. You put your stuff on top, because when you stop, you got to take all the stuff off, open them up, lay it on the ice. Then when you want to move to another hole, you're going to have to pack it all up again and put it up, and it really slows down your movement when you're looking for active fish. One of the great things about the systems of ice fishing developed by the ice team was to find active fish. And so we moved to another lake. That's the ultimate of mobility, is getting in the truck, everything's packed, going to another spot. We're still at Golden Gate State Canyon State Park. We're at the bigger pond. We're going to get out here and see if there's some active fish in this one. So we're going to go. Stephen's got an ice pick. He's going to check the ice ahead of us because it's early in the year. We want to be safe. We'll set up, drill a couple holes, and try for some fish. Since we don't know this pond, we'll take turns then moving around looking for fish, drilling holes. If we find some, then we'll move and set up on them. So come on, let's go see if we can find some. Oh, I got one. Here they are. All right. Ooh, this one might be a little better. Double. Double. All right. That one fish had both our lines. We'll get him on hook and get back down fishing. It just shows you, we came out here and we were getting no fish at all. And so I moved around the pond. Throw that one back, you think? Put that one back, he was kind of small. We were getting no fish at all. So I moved around till I found this hole that was just a little deeper off the edge of the dam. We moved, we haven't been set up for just a few minutes, and we already had 2 bites and we landed a fish. And, oh, I had another bite. You know, while we're fishing here, I want to tell you about the baits we're using too. We came out here with no live bait, which is really starting to become, well, before, I guess, you know, Steve, when I was growing up in Minnesota, we never would have thought of ice fishing without live bait, because you think the fish are so dormant and slow moving. But what I did is I've got a spoon that I'm trying to use to attract them in, and I've got a little piece of paste bait on that, and I'm getting some flash and scent. Don't know if they're eating that or not, but I have Eagle Claw's new nitro paste bait on that. On the other rod, the one I just caught the fish with, I've got one of their little trout worms, and I'll give you some close-ups of those. And that's what that fish ate. In fact, I've just got a piece of one because I figured these, oh, we got fish down here, come on. Now, as small as these fish are, we may have to go to just a dead hook. We're fishing them on jigs right now, so we can give them a little bit of action. But we're both fishing with artificial baits right now. And so far we're getting some bites and some fish. On this fish down there. Can't get him to go. Come on. We set up in one spot, and this is really a bowl-shaped pond. We'd never fished on it before. Moved over here, found that one deeper hole. I covered about a third of, maybe half to a third of the lake. And the only depth you got to fish, oh, had one, got him. Got another one, there we go. Another little trout. These are little stalker, 8-inch, 10-inch rainbow trout. We're not going to catch any big fish here, and we know that because they stock this lake late in the fall, so it's really good to have fun ice fishing. But we just wanted to have some fun and show you some techniques. But I found this deeper hole and we moved. And then, but I moved around without the hut, just took an ice pick or an auger. I took the ice pick because it's early and I punched holes in the ice so I could check for safety. If it was a little later in the year, I would just take my auger and my electronics. Once I found a deeper hole, we moved here and set up, and we've had 3 fish on here in maybe 5 or 10 minutes since we moved. And you'll find that's the way it'll go. He's down there, he's right at it. Come on, eat it. Right there. It is so much fun to see these fish on the electronics. We can see them down there. They're right by the lure. I can see them come in and out as I jig the lure. These little trout. And we're still learning. One thing about the electronics, they teach you the mood of the fish. Of all the tools I use for ice fishing, the flasher electronics by Wickstrom is the best. You see the fish in real time. You see your lure in real time. As you move the lure, you see the fish come in and out. If they move away with one action, you change that action. If they bite when you're doing it a certain way or move towards it, you can actually read the mood of the fish. There's fish further off bottom. I'm going to lift my lure up. I'm fishing down on bottom. I see things going through, but there's some up higher. I'm going to lift it up. There he is. There he is. You know, it's not a big one. When I get this up, I want to show you what I was using too. You come to little spots like this and it can be so much fun. Nice little rainbow, get him out of there. And this is what we expect to catch up here at Golden Gate State Park, or these little rainbows that were stocked in here like this. We're not keeping any, but just you can catch a bunch of them. You could keep some if you wanted to, and there's always a chance at a little bigger fish. Get the hook out of this one. See, just pretty little rainbows. Get that one back in the water. Let me show you what I'm fishing with too here, how simple this is. It's against bug. We were using against worm. It's a little tiny 2-pound test line on a little ultralight rod, okay? What I've done with that then, for bait, so we don't have any bait, I've got these new trout worms by Eagle Claw, the new nitro crawlers, and they're scented plastic. I'll show you what one looks like. Now, if we were fishing big fish or in a summer in a different area, I'd probably use a whole one of these. But see, they're about a 3-inch long worm like that, 2 or 3 inches long. But all I'm doing, I want to show you what I'm doing, is I'm breaking off, because these fish are small and they're eating little bugs in the water. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that little piece of worm and I'm breaking off a piece probably only about that big. And then what I'm doing is hooking that piece onto my little Gens bug jig, which is just a tiny, 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 tiny jig. You can see there in front of my hand how small the whole setup is. That's the whole thing. And then even though this is scented with the nitro bait from Eagle Claw, to get a little extra flash and bleeding into the water, I'm taking the nitro grease, which has some little sparkle flecks in it, some added scent, and it's like a Vaseline consistency. I'm just rubbing a little bit of that on. No live bait at all. We're going back down. Now I use my Wickstrom to tell me where the fish are. There's fish down there right now, and I was down on bottom before. I went all the way down to bottom, and I can see my jig going down, which is really nice, because a little jig like this, sometimes it's hard to feel where you're at, but I can watch it, I can see it on the electronics, and now I'm almost down to bottom, and there's already fish down there. I can see them. It's like playing a video game. It's so much fun. Now I'll tighten it up and I'll lift that off bottom a little bit, and I'll just jig it. Now a lot of times you'll see me out here. In fact, earlier today I was using a spoon and doing a lot of jigging and flashing. These fish seem spooked by that, and most of the time I can attract them with a spoon, but they want this lake, you have to really fine-tune your presentation. No. There it is, another one right away. That's, I tell you what, this now these are little fish, but you can see how fast the action is. Eagle Claw, crawler worms with the nitro scent in them, putting a little of the nitro grease on them. Can't get the jig hardly back down the hole without getting bit. Now, like I said, these aren't giant fish. We're just here to catch a few fish and have a good time, and really to kind of do a little seminar and show you how to catch fish. Wherever you live in the Mountain States region, there's trout lakes like this near you that are frozen for almost all the winter. Whether you live in Utah or New Mexico or Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, there's lots of little lakes like these, and most of the Fish and Game or Divisions of Wildlife and Department of Natural Resources stocks those with some kind of small fish, usually trout. You get up here, what a combination, you know. You got a $20 rod and reel, or maybe this is probably a little more than that. You got a buck for a jig and a little package of plastic things that you can break into tiny pieces, and a little bit of this grease. You're set for the whole day. You don't have to worry about keeping bait alive. I'm not even going to put any more scent on this. There's still plenty on there, and get right back down there and catch those fish while they're there and just have a good time. And you can see the value. I don't have to mess with bait. I'm right back down the hole and I'm fishing again, just like that. You know, one of the prime components of fishing the way we're fishing is your fishing line. When we're doing like today, we're using tiny jigs with little tiny ultralight rods. If you don't have the right line, there's no way you can make this presentation work, because these little tiny jigs, the line we're using is new Eagle Claw laser ice line, and I've got, this is 6 pound in this box, but I've got 2 pound test on for what I'm doing down the hole. And what you have to do for ice fishing is you have to have a line that's supple enough, and that's the key to this laser ice line by Eagle Claw, is that it's very supple in the wintertime and the coils come out of it. Because with this tiny jig, this little Gens bug we're using in that tiny piece of plastic, if this line wasn't supple, you'd have coils in your line, you'd never be able to properly jig the jig, and you'd never feel anything. So the laser ice line by Eagle Claw is able to give you that suppleness and at the same time give you good sensitivity so you can still feel the strike. The reason we're down to 2 pound test line is the same reason. We're using little tiny jigs, and when we're doing that, I need a line that's got a little bit of forgiveness, and that ice line does that. It's got just a little bit of stretch and a little bit of suppleness, and that's perfect for an ice fishing line. The new Eagle Claw laser ice line really is just, it's almost a must when you're doing this kind of fishing. There's another one. Whoa! I'll tell you what. Closed up my hut to get out of the wind a little bit, but I wanted to experiment. We've been catching lots of fish on those little jigs, but I thought, you know, I had trouble catching them on the big jig, so I put the bigger jig on and just worked it, see if I could get a little bigger fish, and I think I did. Not big, but maybe just a little bigger than what I've been catching. Oh yeah, nice fatter rainbow. Nice one. Nice one for here. I mean, it's not a giant, but it's just a nice solid little fish. Now that one, I'll get him back in water and show you what we did for that one. That's a nice little rainbow, a nice little bit bigger fish. Went to a bigger jig. It didn't get as many bites on the bigger jig, but the fish I got was a little bigger. I think those little fish are a little spookier, a little hesitant to eat that bigger jig. This jig is called a, you can see that wind blowing here. This jig is called a Gens worm, and the other one, the Gens bug, is a vertical swimming jig that goes up and down with the eye hole on the top. This is a Gens worm, and we'll show you close-ups of these. Got the same little piece of plastic, the same nitro grease on it, but it's one that hangs horizontal and gets more of a swimming motion. A little too aggressive for those smaller fish today, but for that bigger fish, it was a more attractive meal. Hey, over at the other little pond, we showed you that mobility can be as much as a bucket to carry your stuff in and sit on, or a small tackle box to sit on and carry your auger and electronics and go. And that can be the ultimate of mobility. And mobility can be as much as a snowmobile or an ATV to get around on a big lake with, or mobility can be going from lake to lake. Like we were just 2 small lakes away, so we packed up. We were getting a few fish at the other one, small fish, but they weren't what we were looking for. We thought we'd come here and try it. But mobility, once you're on a lake, can be what you use to move around with. Now we showed you the bucket and sitting on the bucket, but it's a little windy. It's going to get a little cool today, even though it's a nice day out, and I want some shelter, or I don't want to unpack my stuff. These fish trap shelters are just the ultimate of mobility. What they do is they allow you to pack all your stuff in here. My Vexlar's right here. Got that sitting right in here. Right here. Got my auger laying here. All my tackle and rods are right in here. I can put this right in the truck. I don't have to unpack or pack anything. We get out on the lake, I move around, I find a place I want to fish, take my auger out, we'll drill our holes and get set up, check them out with our Vexlar, see if there's fish there, move around till we find some fish. When we find some fish, I can sit right in these, fish for these type of things. And then you know what, if the weather gets bad, all I got to do is pop this up like this, flip it over, and bang, I'm ready to go. And I'm sheltered and ready to fish. We decided we want to move some more. Mobility is just flip it down, pick my auger up, pull the rope, take off, and I'm on to the next hole. Now while we're doing that, a couple of us are fishing. One can be going, one of us will go around and check the lake till we find the fish, use the Wickstrom, use the electronics, use our auger. Once we find them, set up, get cozy, and catch all the fish we want. Remember, be mobile, use electronics. You catch a lot more fish when you're ice fishing. Well, I'll tell you what, there's still fish on the electronics, but I probably got to call it a day. We've got to pack things up. Got a lot of things to do. Only a 20-minute drive from downtown Denver, and we're going to stop and have some dinner. And what a neat setting this is. You can come up here. We only came up here for a few hours, middle of the day, sunny weather, a little bit of wind, but sunny weather. Beautiful setting up here at Golden Gate Canyon State Park. You got to drive through and just check it out. There's several small ponds, the 2 that are open for ice fishing. You know, if you want to take a kid ice fishing or just get out, you can hop in the car from the Front Range of Colorado, from Denver. You can be up here in half an hour. You can be on the ice fishing, catching the kind of fish you saw here. We're not going to catch big fish. So I hope you got an idea what this park is like, saw the beautiful visitor center and some of the other attractions up here. And hope you'll learn, no matter where you live in the Mountain States region, some of the tactics we showed you today and the techniques about fishing, about being mobile, getting out and moving around, finding the fish. You know, it just shows you, try some of these techniques, try some of these products. You can get out on any of these small lakes and ponds that are in the Mountain States area and have a great time ice fishing, just doing what we showed you here and just have a great time. So get out, try it. Don't put your fishing gear away in the winter. Do some ice fishing and join us next week on Mountain States Fishing.